This is the Misdirected Mark Podcast, a podcast about gaming, game mastering, and entertaining you, our listeners. We are explicit, you have been warned, and I'd like to thank Mike Willard for letting us use his music on our show. Now let's pick up those mics and get on with this thing.
Okay, I think you should go with purple.
I'd take the gray out. What about you?
Yeah, maybe green. Something that says Old Man Logan is environmentally friendly?
Well, hey, gang. What are you guys doing?
I'm picking out hair colors.
Hair colors? You too?
Yeah, hair colors. Fits the theme. Also, I booked us a live podcast at the Four Seasons.
Oh, sweet. Good idea.
Yep.
Jerry, do you think we should get mani-pedis?
I've always wanted one. But I've got that pinky that I ran through a saw and I shattered 2 toenails with a death strapped on my foot. So that might be a bit much for them.
Those are some messed up toes, man.
Wait. Why are we looking at hair and nails? I mean, don't get me wrong. I totally approve. But it's usually not, part of our gig for the show.
Yeah, it fits the theme.
Theme. Oh, that's right, because tonight is...
That's right, it's another Salon episode.
And with that, welcome to the 416th episode of the Misdirected Mark Podcast. Tonight, we jump into a less scripted Salon episode, talking about games we've played and how we involve some of our topics from the last year. Along the way, we're going to take your topics and suggestions from the chat room for life before jumping into the after show. But first, my name is Jerry.
My name is Phil.
And I am Old Man Logan.
Woo.
Woo is right. And of course, as we do during this time of the COVIDs, we have to do a temperature check before everybody can get into the house misdirected. So, Phil, how are you feeling?
I wrote my notes from yesterday. I'm feeling better than garbage. I was feeling like garbage yesterday. I am feeling somewhat better than garbage today. Last week, by the way, we made the correct call not to record during election night. Last week was awful. In terms of anxiety and stress, the election was just terrible. Not terrible in terms of outcome, awesome in terms of outcome. Terrible in terms of length. Having to go Tuesday all the way through Saturday was agonizing. And then compound that with whatever fucking nonsense somewhere between a grift / con and a soft coup that's going on right now. And I don't say that. I don't mean to sound flippant when I say that. I'm actually pretty upset, but I'm just trying to keep the shit on the level here. It's been really anxiety evoking. I've had panic attacks. I've had all sorts of physical manifestations of stress over the last week or so, compounded with I've got work stresses and other stresses on top of it. My sleep is a disaster. Physically wasn't feeling well yesterday. Panic attacks on and off. Little bit of depression by this morning. I'm in real need for some time off, which we're going to talk about when we get to the announcements.
I feel like I need to throw in dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria.
I mean, it's been a fucking roller coaster ride. Like Tuesday was the disaster through until Saturday. Then Saturday was like a huge high point. Then like this bullshit that's been going on, and I say it in like the most clear terms possible, right? All this bullshit that's been going on since then has just been frustrating. And honestly, I'm trying my best to manage it. But, part of me is like, this is a fucking coup. Get your rocks and, like stick some rags in all your alcohol bottles because we're going to go, burn some shit down in protest on one half of my brain. And the other half is like, this guy's a fucking con man. He's just keeping this thing going because he's milking money out of his supporters. Because if you've read all the things where all the donations to the voter defense fund or like going into paying off his campaign debts. Like, I don't know. Anyway, whatever. Biden Harris. That's what I'm saying there on that. Anyway, it's been a fucking mess. I've been a fucking mess, and it was good that we weren't recording on Tuesday. And the reason we're doing a salon today is because over the weekend, I couldn't put my shit together to write the episode that we should be doing tonight, which is all about puppet masters, which is next week's topic, assuming the Republic can fucking hold together long enough to make it to next Tuesday.
Yes, deep breath.
How are you guys doing?
I'm actually doing pretty much okay. The stress from the past 2 weeks is mitigated. I've had some good outlets for stress. I've built a ton of little Lego sets, but I'm doing much better. And the only thing that's been trouble is that with daylight savings time, it gets dark an hour early. And by the time I get home from work, I can't ride my bike. So though it's been nice bike riding weather for the last couple of days, I've only gotten out once. So by the time I get home, me too. I haven't been able to ride. So, but it's a small price to pay for having some decent weather and seeing a silver lining behind that cloud. We just got to make it through the next couple of months and things will hopefully get a little bit better. But I'm better today than I was last week at this time. And that's what I'm looking forward to. Plus I'm getting more sleep. Bob?
Yeah, I'm mostly okay. I went through some of what Phil went through this past week was kind of a nail biter and caught myself a couple times like, oh, you need to breathe. Yeah, that's it. You need to breathe. Yep. Physically, I'm feeling pretty good. So that's nice. My neck isn't a hot mess. My back, I got a back muscle that was kind of cranky for a couple days, but overall, physically, I feel much better than I have since probably way earlier in the year. So that's good. And surprisingly enough, with all of the mental stress and all the stuff that's going on with the pandemic and the election and all that other, I've been holding it together enough that I actually haven't talked to my therapist since March. And I've thought a couple times, like, maybe I should make an appointment. And I went, and I, like, in my head, I just went, okay, we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about this. And I'm like, I'm going to spend, whatever the copay is, sit and have a nice chat with her. But like, I just figured it all out in my head in 5 minutes. I'm like, if I'm really like freaking out, then I'll give her a call. And luckily I haven't been like really freaking out. So I'm knocking on wood. I'm thankful that I'm managing to hold it together good enough like that. So luckily I don't have work stress really piling on top to add to the mess. Work's been pretty chill. So yeah, I think we're all good to go into the house. So let's head on in and get this party started.
All right.
Let's get this party started with the one thing. I'll shoot it to the crowd first here. I just finished middle of last week. Might have even been Friday actually. I just finished Star Wars Rebels, and love that show. They did such a nice job on it. I wasn't ready for the gut punch late in the fourth season, early and midway through the fourth season, whatever. No spoilers, but there's a gut punch. You can tell it's coming. I mean, it's not like. But I wasn't really ready for it, and otherwise I was like, But I also wasn't ready for a planet full of fucking spiders. There, I said it.
Oh, no spoilers on that one. If you know, you know.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
So you need to start putting
content warning on that
media
shit.
outlets. You need content warnings for arachnophobes and other stuff. It's like, you know how you have TV7 or whatever, or TVMA, or violence and language. Give me a little trigger warning.
TV spiders. Remind me after the show to tell you something about parody, and that's all I'll say about with that show. And it'll only take a second. But go ahead.
But yeah,
right.
And thoroughly enjoyed that show. Again, all of the Star Wars stuff. Even though I'm doing a lot of Trek stuff at the same time, the Star Wars stuff really has me wanting to play a game of Star Wars in the Rebels era.
So much.
So much. But that's my one thing. Phil, what do you got for a thing?
I'm going to say my one thing. I mean, I got to be honest. Like, I really didn't have a one thing because of last week, right? It's been like a shit show all week. But I'll say my one thing is I'm deep into season 5 Voyager. That is not disappointing. Like that is, boy, it really is. If I just get over the part like where, and now I totally forgot his name, Michael Pyler leaves any Star Trek show, I like it so much better. The writing in season 5 is pretty exceptional. There are some really solid episodes. The weird part about it, because I'm making the list for the Voyager watch, the weird part about it is it's when I did the TNG list, I did the TNG list with like, all right, we're going to watch good TNG episodes, plus we need to watch episodes that are going to help Deep Space Nine make sense, right? So we watched The Host because it explains trills and that kind of thing. And then making the DS9 one, like those have like some complicated story arcs. So I like those, like we have to include a whole bunch of episodes because, if you're going to, we need to see no minor spoiler here, but no real spoiler. Like we needed to see the House of Quark because next week we're going to see the return of one of the characters from the House of Quark. So like those things you have to set up. But like when I get to Voyager, like Voyager doesn't advance any like Alpha Quadrant timeline stuff by very much. And it has like some little arcs, but not really big arcs. So a lot of it's just like, this Voyager episode's good. We'll watch this one. And a couple, every now and then I'll be like, oh yeah, you have to watch this one because it's going to inform this one. But most of the time it's just like, this episode is good because the episode is good. And that's not to say it's bad. It's just different in how I'm making up the list. Because I usually, in my sheet, I have like an explanation why I picked each episode so that like months later when I'm looking at it, I'm like, why did I pick this episode again? And it'll be like, oh, because this character is introduced or this thing happens. Right. But a lot of them on Voyager are just like, good episode. And that's not bad because good Trek is good Trek. But whatever.
Absolutely.
Anyway, season 5 Voyager, not disappointing. And they got 2 more seasons. I'm halfway through season 5. So I got a couple more. I got like another month or 2 of Voyager, I think. And then I don't know what the fuck I'm going to do for series.
Discovery.
Yeah, Discovery be okay.
Lower Decks.
I just have to go get CBS then. I have to, that's the other thing. Thank you, Avi. Thank you. Jerry, how about you? What's your one thing?
My one thing is The Mandalorian. Without any spoilers, just going to say, good fun storytelling. Very RPG-like. Though, as Chris commented, if The Mandalorian was an RPG, explosives and cockamamie schemes would have been Plan A, not Plan C. But he's right. But yeah, between Mandalorian and Rebels, I am so very much into a Star Wars game. I've been rereading the Genesis rule book that has kind of wet my whistle on that. I really want to do some more Genesis one of these days. But The Mandalorian just was. I watch every episode and the 6-year-old Jerry playing with his little Star Wars action figures in 1977 just comes to life every time I see that game, that show.
I love it all the way around, right? I mean, I love all of them. I love the little encapsulated stories. I love the cowboy feel of it. I love that. I love that Baby Yoda is basically just a walking threat pool.
Have you seen the posts about that basically you realize that on Dagobah, Yoda was like an alpha predator. He was probably eating everything in sight all the time, and then the entire planet breathed a sigh of relief when he finally died.
Yeah. There have been a bunch of people out there bagging on episode 2 of this season of The Mandalorian that it was a filler episode, and I'm like, you know what? Even if you consider it to be a filler episode, it's still fun.
I would say not, and I don't want to spoil it, but there are some resolution of stuff that happened in season 1 that gets resolved in this episode. And I think you're going to be seeing some other stuff come down the line because of it. I
can watch any episode of that show. It's good. It's good. It's just good fun Star Wars.
One of my employees, he got his wife to watch episodes 1 and 2 of this season. She got to the end of episode 2 on Friday, and they spent Saturday just curled up binge watching season 1 because she hadn't seen it yet.
Legit. It's a legit way to go.
I'm like, that is a good Saturday.
Yeah, that's a great way to spend a Saturday. I thought I saw somebody in the chat room say that they were watching some West Wing. I have been watching some West Wing on the side as well. We may do a West Wing watch party kind of thing at some point, since there are a number of you who have not seen West Wing, and that is criminal unto itself. That we should watch what is probably the pinnacle of drama TV, dramatic TV, whatever. Yeah. I fucking love that show.
It is, yeah. That has been another one of those palate cleansing things. I'll just go on YouTube and type in a scene and just binge watch a bunch of West Wing episodes.
It's competency porn, right? It's competency porn, right?
It is competency porn.
Oh, it's how the government actually runs successfully with no shit.
Correct. I mean, that's how I honestly, just to diverge again, because there's no way to not diverge about this, but I cried for a good portion of Saturday, out of relief, right? An actual human being as a president again. And I don't mean that to dehuman. I'm just saying, when I say human, I mean compassionate, loving, someone affectionate,
who has empathy for other
empathy, right? Anyway.
All right, we should probably move on to the next.
It's a happy time.
Announcements. And hey, I have a little thing here for the announcements. That's just. You guys didn't hear it, but it was one of those. It's like they do on Star Trek. It's from Star Trek. It's that whistle that they do when they're doing a ship-wide announcement.
Yes.
So yeah, announcements. That. Star Trek.
So first of all, DS9 Watch Club, we are heading into season 5. We'll be spending 4 more weeks in season 5 before crossing over to 6. At this point, all along the way, I've been you should totally join us. But at this point, look, if you've watched the series before, come join us. We're going to be watching some good episodes all through season 5. We're doing 2 every week on our watch party, so you're always welcome to come hit up the watch party. If you haven't watched DS9 before, I would not jump in at this point. I would just
we're so deep.
Just go into the forums. I've got the entire list of episodes you should watch for seasons 1 through 4 already. Just dig in and catch up with us, and just join us and have conversations in the forums. Okay, so anyway, that watch club's going on. The other thing I think we need to mention is next week is our last episode of 2020. So I take that back, because we'll come back right before New Year's. Yeah. So it's not our last one of 2020, but we are going on our winter hiatus, and honestly, we fucking deserve it.
We plugged our way through a lot of shit.
Oh
this
my
year.
God, this year couldn't have been worse for we've managed to keep it together. We've managed to keep the show afloat. We even had some regular episodes, but honestly, we do this every year around the American Thanksgiving. It's because between American Thanksgiving and Christmas, schedules get all wonky. It's not like it's going to get that wonky because we're mostly in lockdown. And in fact, our county is actually in a heightened state of alert right now.
Wear a fucking mask.
Yeah, wear a fucking mask. I'll be honest, I haven't seen people not wear masks. But anyway, please wear masks. And I don't know, don't have parties or something. Anyway, we're taking some time off. Yeah. We're going to take a couple of weeks off. I think it comes out to 4 or 5 weeks. We're going to take some time off. We're going to recharge our own batteries. I don't think people realize there's a grind to doing this weekly, right? We finish a show, we start the next show on Wednesday morning, right? It's a weekly process that doesn't stop. And for the most part, with the exception of a little bit at the beginning of the pandemic, we've been going pretty much full steam, and it'll be nice to have a little downtime.
Yeah.
So we're going to take some downtime. We're going to kind of just relax, recover. We'll come back before the end of the year. We'll let people know a couple weeks in advance. We might even do a little recorded thing and drop it into the feeds just to remind people, because I think that's something we could easily do. We could all jump on one night for 5, 10, 15 minutes and say hi. And just kind of, get it in the feeds. So we're not pod fading.
Nope.
Don't take us off your podcatcher lists or anything like that.
Nope.
we'll be back, and we'll talk about it more next week because I'll give the exact dates next week. I'll actually do the calendaring and I'll figure it all out and present it to all you listeners. And then we'll remind everyone on social media, but a much needed hiatus is coming. Yeah. And I'm looking forward to actually getting time on Tuesdays and Fridays, right? Because Tuesdays is recording night, which is pretty much 7:30 till 10:30. That's 3 hours of my Tuesdays. And then I write the show notes for an hour or two every Friday. So that's like 5 hours out of my week coming back to me for a couple weeks. Like, giddy up. Anyway, I don't have any other announcements. Does anyone have any other announcements? Kickstarters they want to plug? I think there's like a few. I don't know if it'll be. I think Thirsty Sword Lesbians will be over by the time this drops. But I'm pretty sure they're okay. They're like at $200,000.
I'm very confident that they are just fine.
They're
doing great.
I've done my part. I've done my part to back it. I'm sure they're fine. I'm trying to think if I saw anything else come out recently that really grabbed my eyeballs. I don't think so. I think I'm like in between. I'm in between Kickstarters right now.
Yeah, I had to watch a couple of them go bye-bye that were on my watch list because I've just got so many that are outstanding. And I'm like I gotta, at some point I gotta not get one that looks cool that I'm never really going to use, but it looks cool that I wanted to get in on and try to, rein it in for a while. So.
Yeah, it's not even a rein in thing for me. I think at this point right now, I have a bunch of RPGs. And we keep playing the same stuff because we're like in some long-term campaigns. I'm not cycling through. And I've got things that are definitely already in the wings that are like the next time I'm open, I'll get it. And that's not to say that if a kick-ass Kickstarter, because like Thirsty Sword Lesbians came by and I was right on top of that, like boom, back and go. But nothing's really jumped out at me in the last couple weeks. So I haven't really jumped on anything to back. Oh, one last announcement. The 14th, which I believe is Saturday. I believe Cyberpunk Red, the RPG, not the video game. Cyberpunk Red will be dropping on PDF. And Mike Pondsmith is finishing up a free PDF that converts all of the Cyberpunk 2020 weapons to Cyberpunk Red stats. Cool. So if you got old modules like I do, old source books like I do, I'm sensing I'm gonna want to run Cyberpunk Red. I'm
excited. I'm excited about that.
I'm having strong feelings that at some point I'm gonna want to flip one of my games to a Cyberpunk game.
I'm more curious than excited, but that's enough to get me in. So
I will say this: they showed a side-by-side comparison. The book is thicker than the original Cyberpunk 2020 book, and I'm like, oh, do you need to make a game bigger? I liked it when it was a box set. It was 3 small books, but all right, like we all like page count apparently.
And I've got my Ripper Jacks on. I've got my Midnight upgrade, and I've got my Trauma Team card. I'm ready to go. Let's do this.
You got your Mr. Stud?
In fact, I've even got my backup. I've got my REO Meatwagon card. So.
Whoa, there you go.
Oh man. All right. Well, that should do it for announcements, eh?
Yeah, I'm going to answer Avi's thing really quick. I am not in the least believing that there's anything modern about Cyberpunk Red. I'm pretty sure this is a straight up 80s, 90s tech game with a little bit of polishing and some smoother edges. But I'll be honest, if I was looking for an indie Cyberpunk game, I already have it.
Yeah.
It's called The Sprawl. It's fucking amazing. I love The Sprawl to no end. But part of me, I really would like to have like a little bit of a kind of a little bit of a Renaissance moment and play something kind of old schoolish, and a cleaned up version of Cyberpunk might just be the thing. But who fucking knows? I'm buying it anyway. So
me too. Tell them about the thing you told us on Saturday about how they're doing that one particular cyber upgrade.
What? I don't think I'm aware of this. Do you got a piece?
About gender?
Oh, Yeah, so I did see one nice thing I saw.
Very cool.
Mike Pondsmith had announced. Somebody had asked a question about changing genders in Cyberpunk Red, and he was like, "Oh, it's low cost, costs no humanity, has no consequence, like has no mechanical detriments or anything to it, and is available almost everywhere that you can get cybernetics."
Yes,
that's cool.
So no weird subtext about changing genders, or like if you want to change your gender, change your gender.
Mm-hmm.
Like I thought that was actually pretty nice, and I think there was some positive feedback.
It's very cool. It's very
on Twitter
positive
about it as well. Avi, I have not tried
like
Hack
that.
the Planet yet. I think I own Hack the Planet though, which is the
Sounds
Blades. Which look, I'm going to be honest. I'm probably one of the minority here. I'm not a huge Forged in the Dark guy. I ran 2 Forged games. Not huge on that system. It is a mentally cumbersome game. And I have some issues about how most of those books are ordered.
Yeah, the layout of those books, the organization, the visual layout is pretty, it's attractive and clean, but organization wise, those books are laid out terribly.
Yeah, Blades in the Dark was one of the most
Blades
difficult.
is like that.
The one you guys are playing right now.
Friggin' Space one is like that. The Band of Blades is like that. It's like, oh my God, just organize this so that we can just follow along and understand what's going on.
There was in what was it 2 sessions ago, the GM went on like a 10-minute rant about how badly laid out the game was good, but how badly laid out it was, and how we had to sit there and look at things and read them 6 times. It's like yes, we understand after reading these 6 different disparate pages what they meant on this rule, but it should have just been put in plain speak. Still a fun game, but definitely and I like Band of Blades.
We're enjoying it. It's got a lot of
things I like.
A lot of stuff, a lot of crunch, but it's
not a go-to game system
for sure. But I think we've played so much Forged in the Dark now that like the whole concept of it is pretty much like drilled into us now.
Yeah. Yep.
So you throw a Forged in the Dark game at us and we're like, okay, bing, 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 bing. We just have to get the intricacies of each individual one.
Yep. I suspect I'd like playing a Forged in the Dark game more than I would like running one.
I suspect you would.
I did not enjoy. It's not that I couldn't run it. I can run a Forged in the Dark game. Yeah. I just I would finish those games and be fucking exhausted.
It's a lot of cognitive load for the GM to wade through to get everything going. So yeah.
Anyway,
that is the thing. We don't have a Salon thing, so we're in the Salon.
Salon.
We do now.
I'm sure Rob's gonna cut that tomorrow.
Just snip that. We've now got a Salon bumper.
That makes me happy. That just makes me happy. That makes me happy.
And done. Salon bumper recorded.
Oh, beautiful.
All right, so listen, the Salon is the place where we talk about our goal for tonight, right, in the Salon is to have gaming discussions that kind of come out of the games that we're playing and some of the media that we're consuming, right? So it's not about us telling gaming stories, and it's not about us just talking about media. It's about pulling out interesting gaming topics from the things that are going on in the stuff that we are doing.
Yep.
And then have a little discussion about it. So I've structured this one a little more concretely like that for tonight. So there'll be an actual topic. We'll each talk about a game. We'll each bring up a topic and talk about it. And then the other two will comment and have their own thoughts about that topic. And of course, the Chat Room for Life can always jump in as well.
Yes, please.
And we'll start that by doing the things that we are playing. And I'll lead the way to kind of set the pace for tonight. So I've been running Numenera, and we've cleared session. I think we cleared session 4. And then while we have not had our formal session 4 talk, I was going to have that this past Sunday, but our group was kind of a bit worn out.
Only session 4.
Yeah, it's not as many.
We've been doing it longer.
No, it's really only been about 4 sessions. It's been spread out because we've had a couple missed sessions here and there and that kind of thing. But feeling that we're not going anywhere on it. I'm feeling pretty solid that that game's going to stick around.
Yeah.
I started to do some work last week about doing a larger campaign. So something I think Bob had said in a previous episode of the show really got me thinking that I have been, and I do this, like I hadn't done this in a while for a couple of games, was to really build out like a much larger idea of what the game was going to be about. I did for Tales. So Tales had like a really big campaign arc attached to it. And Masks didn't until like we hit like an arc and we just took that to the end of the campaign. But I was just kind of playing Masks as we went along kind of thing. Anyway, I started to think about, I really need to start figuring out like what are the bigger things going on in this campaign. And it got me into thinking about arcs, right? Because, that's the thing we talk about a lot here. So I started thinking about arcs, like which arcs do I want to have in the game? And I can't get into too much detail because Bob's sitting right here. So I will just tell you in generalities what I came up with.
Here.
He's right there, and he's in that game. But in that game, I have these like really big mountains called the Gasalt Mountains. There's kind of a history to them. They're clearly not just mountains. There's like a whole bunch of ruins inside of them. I think, Bob, right? Like we've talked about at a meta level what those mountains really are, right?
Yeah.
They're like a crushed up city.
Yeah.
Right. And so there's a whole bunch of Numenera stuff in them. So and then outside of that, there is Synth Town, which is the actual town where you guys live in that makes its living by basically mining those mountains for shit. So I started to think about it. I was like, all right, well, what kind of arcs do I want in the game so that I can start kind of managing them? And I was like, all right, I want an arc about something that's going on inside the mountains. I want an arc about something that's going on outside of the city and the mountains. I want an arc about something that's going on inside the city. And then, of course, I want character arcs, at least one for each character. So my topic that I wanted to bring up for tonight is plotting arcs and keeping track of them, right? How do you do that for various games? How do you do it for your games? So I started to think about it for for this game. I was like, well, how do I want to keep track of these things? How do I want to manage them? And I think that my favorite way to do this is still the Dungeon World Signs and Portents, right? Which is like, I have a description of what the arc's going to be. I have like a final outcome. Like if no one messes around with this, this is what happens. And then I write like 5 bullets of things that the first couple are most likely going to happen. The last handful are likely to be interfered with as the players kind of engage the arc. But I write like 5 things that could happen. That's like a little mini, like it shapes the arc. And then I'll update it like through the campaign. Right. So like I did this for each one of those ideas, like something inside the mountains. And I came up with an idea and kind of gave it a goal, picked out the 5 things. Something outside the city, did that. And then purposely I was like, okay, one of these has to be something good. It can't be like all bad things just hammering on the players, right? Like one of these has to be like an arc about like a good thing. So I picked out one of those and wrote that down. And right now I've got them just, honestly, right now I hand wrote all of them. So they're in the notebook that I use for brainstorming, but eventually they'll all get transferred, probably to, probably each their own tab in my OneNote campaign book. And I'll just use it to kind of keep a running idea of like a running list of all the things that are happening, my ideas and stuff like that. And I really like that signs and portents thing because I think it's a really easy way to kind of capture and manage an arc. And it's something between games I can kind of come look at and be like, okay, well, which arc or arcs in the next session do I want to engage? Right. And then like pull from there, or, oh, the players are really hot on this one arc. What's the next step in that arc? Because I think I'm going to push that one forward. That kind of thing. So that's my general topic, is about plotting arcs and keeping track of them. So Jerry, I'll ask you, I'll ask you, like, do you do something similar for your games? Like, do you do?
It really depends on the game. The one I'm running right now is because I'm running Eberron. I'm running the first 4 modules. I've got a rough outline already of what's supposed to happen in each module. Now I have added a number of side plots and changed some of the major NPCs based entirely on what the players are doing, because the players I've got are much more story based. We've got a lot more things in there, other puppet masters in the background and things along that line. So I've got that kind of plotted out in a notebook of just who's going where, but also because my players tend to derail the adventure a little bit. For example, removing the ship they're supposed to be on from the story. That's been a little different, but generally I do a little bit and keep track of who's who, and then I'll make notes after every adventure about how things have changed. If they met one of their villains and had a long conversation with them, and in doing so both picked up some information and also changed the power balance, or maybe got one villain interested in another villain, that's going to change things I need to make note of and how things are going to go. Because, as I said, I'm doing a bunch of modules, I know that there are going to be certain set-piece encounters that I would like to have happen if possible, and that the module has a certain group of adversaries. But, for example, the adversaries the party's about to face in the next encounter, it doesn't make sense for that group of adversaries to be working for the person that the module says they are. So I've had to make some changes as to why these adversaries are showing up and what they're doing there. There's still a reason for, but it's something that's something to see there. And it's something I just keep track of as I go through is who's changed, why are these guys here, what are they doing, and also a few notes on what kind of conversations are they going to have when the players inevitably decide to stop and reverse monologue on them, which is just as good. Plus, I have to make sure that I've got at least some point in there for there to be some sexual tension and kissing between the players, because that's what they like to do. So,
that's fine.
But yeah, that's what I do. I just keep notes. How about you, Bob? Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, coming off of your thought there, so there's also a thing I do between sessions. Like, if I advance an arc and no one bites on it, like no one's really like, oh, that was interesting, or oh, that's creepy, or like if I don't hear any good feedback from it, like then those things can just die on the vine, right? Like those are the kinds of things where I can just be like, I rolled it out there, no one really bit on it. We're just going to push that one back to the side. I'm going to bring out another arc in its place. And that happened to me in my Masks game like a year ago, where I had this arc going out about this guy making superpowered drugs. And in the end, the players like kind of got the clue that would have led them to busting him, and they handed it to Aegis. And they're like, yeah, I think that pusher guy's over here. And they like gave him the info. And I was like, okay, I guess we're not doing that arc. Like, that's okay. Like, I don't take those things personally. It's the spaghetti wall kind of thing, right? Like you throw those arcs out at the players, and you see what sticks, right? Like the ones that stick, I advance, and the ones that don't fall to the floor, and I'll just throw some more until something else sticks. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yep. I've had that happen. Even this present adventure, I realized by the second, the present story arc we're doing Whispers of the Vampire's Blade, which is a long chase. And I began to realize by the end of the second encounter that it's pretty much an adventure where the players almost catch up to the bad guy he gets again, almost catch up to and that's no fun. That stops being entertaining. Yeah. There are some places that they go that the real adventure is designed to get the players into a bunch of interesting set pieces. They have to get themselves into a masquerade. They end up at a skyship battle. They have to jump onto a moving train. All that. There's ways to do that. So I just scrapped the plot partway through and changed how things worked. But I've had that happen a lot, where I'll toss out a plot hook the players are interested in. And as a player, I've done that, where I've been in, and I'm like, you know what? There is just no reason. Like, none of us are interested in this plot. And sometimes you have to tell the GM, you know what? Does anybody here interested in this? No, we're sorry. It doesn't interest our characters. You need to find another reason to get us involved in this, because none of us are excited about it. And you don't want to be that's ruder than. But there are times that you sometimes have to say that because the GM isn't catching on to the fact that players just don't care. And when the players start randomly destroying stuff because they're bored, that's a good point. That's a good reason to think about what's going on in an adventure.
No, that's fair.
Why are they fireballing everything? Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, I was just going to say that not all plot lines and story arcs are going to grab the players equally, and that's why one of the reasons why I'm a fan of doing a periodic temperature check with the whole table to make sure that all the stuff that you put in your expectations in session 0 are being met. All your safety stuff, your lines and veils, make sure that things haven't changed there. You guys didn't really seem super enthused about that arc with that villain. Are you just you want to just let that one fade? Like every once in a while, you got to take the pulse of the table and see where you stand with stuff, because you're not always, as a GM, going to be able to pick up that vibe. Sometimes it'll just go past you. Sometimes it's too subtle, whatever. And for whatever reason, sometimes the players aren't going to be super vocal about it.
I think it's a good point, which is I will dovetail off of that and say, from the GM side, this is why I am I don't want to say low energy, because when I GM to bring it, but I am low investment when I introduce anything in a game. Right? Like, I used to have this problem when I was much younger and way more full of myself as a GM, where, I would come up with an idea and I would fucking love it. And then I would bring it into the game, and I will make you love this idea that I have, right?
I'm gonna ram it down your throat.
One way or another, you're going to be playing this plot, buddy. Right. And I would pat myself on the back and be really super proud of myself about that stuff. And I have a completely different approach now. What I do is I throw things out there and I see what takes. Right. And I don't take it personally if I put a bunch of stuff out there and nothing takes. Right. I'll just put more stuff out. Ideas are cheap. Right. I can always come up with ideas. I can find them somewhere and come up with my own or whatever. Once I see something take traction, that's when I'll stop and be like, okay, now I'm gonna go put some work inside this. One of the things that was running in our Masks game for a while, that was on and off in the early part of the game, was this thing that Tony's character was talking to Nikola Tesla, the ghost of Nikola Tesla.
Yep.
No one actually knew if it was really Nikola Tesla, whatever, but Tony was sure it was Tesla. And it came back enough times and enough places, and that it started to get interesting. And that's when I stopped and wrote the arc that took up the rest of that campaign, because I was like, everybody's invested in this idea. It seems to be where everything's coalescing. Cool. I'll put my investment in. In the past, me would have done that before session 0.
Yeah.
Right? Not knowing if we were going to make it 4 sessions or not knowing if anyone in session 5 or beyond would even find the idea interesting.
You'd have had multiple pages.
Yes, I would have had multiple pages. I would have gone to great lengths to make you love it.
Yep.
But now I'm the exact opposite of that. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna scatter a bunch of stuff on the floor. What do you like? You like that one? Cool. Cool. I'm going to just quietly take that and I'll go work it up.
Yep. And it's always a good idea to have multiple things to sprinkle out there, because you literally have no idea what the players are going to bite into. You're going to be sitting there going, oh, I think they're really going to enjoy this guy over here. And this little tiny side plot all of a sudden just goes. And you're like, oh.
Never ever hinge a plot on the players liking a particular NPC.
Yeah.
No.
I've been in so many adventures.
Unless you've already done the work. Unless they already love the NPC.
Yeah. Yes. Because I've been in so many adventures where it's obvious
based on that. Yeah.
But
I've been in so many adventures where I can tell the GM loves this NPC and cannot understand why the players don't. I mean, I was in a campaign where we killed 3 NPCs because the GM did not get the fact that he thought they were being suave, sophisticated, and in one case like romantic, and we saw them as either an intruder, an abuser, or in one case a creeper, and we just killed off their NPC. And he's, why'd you kill him? Well, because we told him to stop doing that. But he's a sexy pirate like Johnny Depp. Yeah, that's why we don't like him.
Yeah, so we killed him.
Do you know anything about Johnny Depp? Yeah, that's the problem.
I don't understand why my players aren't attaching to my feisty knight Sir Hax-a-Lot. Like, he should be in their hearts.
But she's a sexy elf girl. Why aren't you guys all falling all over her?
No.
Because I don't care about that.
Yeah,
because I'm a sexy elf girl. That's not how I.
We're not 12 at this table, and that's not
exactly
what this game is.
Yeah, so you've got to. I've done this several times where when I introduce an NPC, and I will tell them right off the bat, I'm like, listen, this next adventure is done. I said, do you want this character to stay with you guys, or do you want to shift on? And so they're like, oh no, we like this character because they fill a niche we don't have, or because they're there, we don't need a healer. We'll bring them along. Like, great, that's fine. Yep. Here's their character sheet. Run them as an extra character, but don't. It is so frustrating when I play a game with a GM who doesn't get the fact that we don't like their NPC.
Yeah.
So I had another encounter with this, right? Of the I think you'll love it and you won't. Recently, when we picked our latest DCC adventure. So the adventure that I wanted to play was the that really weird one, the Purple Overlord or whatever, the one where you travel to like some sort of Holocaust, like post Holocaust like world, and like it's like a sword and fantasy Thundar kind of thing going on. And I pitched it, but I never pick the module, right? I always put out a couple candidates, and then I read you guys the back cover stuff for them, and I let you guys pick. And you all like by majority, you picked the one that I did not like. I was like, oh, this Purple Planet one or whatever, and you guys were like, we're gonna do the Ghost Ring one, and I was like, oh yeah, huh? Did not. Did not.
Actually, I think we were all like, we all actually expressed like, I'm not sure I want to do the Purple Planet. I think people actually expressed they weren't interested in that one at all.
Yeah, let me just clarify because Crafty DM's asking, right? So it was either some sort of nuclear holocaust or post-apocalyptic. I don't remember the details of the adventure. That's what I meant by holocaust. I didn't mean I meant like post-holocaust, like nuclear holocaust thing.
I think it's because that one is at least implies that it's a shift in genre.
Oh, it's a shift in genre, right? It's a Thundar kind of thing.
And I think we're enjoying this. I think if we want to play that kind of thing, that's a different game for us.
It was totally fine. I didn't take it personally because again, I don't take any of those things personally. But but it was the one like for me, I was like, oh, I think this one would be like super interesting, right? Like I think this would be kind of fun to play. And you guys were like, yeah, this Ghost Ring one sounds a lot more interesting. And I was like, but here's the thing with DCC adventures, I don't panic, right? Yeah. I'm like, these are all going to be good. So I'm like, yeah, it's fine.
Well, I will put out one warning sign. This has happened to me twice now. I sat down to a one-shot, most recently last year, where the GM sat down and she's like, okay, she's like, I've got pre-generated characters for everybody. She's like, this is based on the book I'm writing. And here are the characters that you get to play. And it's really important that these two characters show up in the game because they're the main characters in the book. And then proceeded to run the adventure. And it was very quickly that she didn't have any logic behind her plot. And so when the players decided they didn't want to follow her plot, she almost table flipped.
Oh boy.
It was, I'm like, that's
I mean, listen, there are ways to do that in a con game to make it work, right? Like the way that you introduce the plot, the way you introduce the session in the in the con, entry book, whatever, right? Like there's ways to narrow the play space that are like better than others.
But don't
even though there's better ways, don't do it. There's my advice as a player.
Yeah.
If you want to write a novel, that's awesome. Write a novel. If you want to run a role-playing session, run a role-playing session and let the players play the game. Yeah. Don't try to let them play your novel, because that is never, ever, ever going to happen.
Right. I mean, here's the thing, right? A role-playing game does not, a role-playing game and a novel, role-playing game and a movie, right, are not the same medium.
No, they're not at all.
Right? And they don't come out the same way, right? Yeah. Which they just don't. Although I will say this, if you really wanted your game to come out more like your book, like that's the candidate for me, where I would almost exclusively design it as a PBTA game.
Yeah.
Because then I could design the moves to kind of direct you to the same subtext that my book had.
Yeah.
But still, I have a really cool setting in my novel, and I want you to play in that setting. That's great.
Yes.
That's great. And
I want you to
said PBTA, where you can evoke that with the moves and stuff. Fabulous. But do not try and get them to play the plot of your novel.
Or the characters.
Or the characters, because you're not going to like where it goes.
No.
You're so invested in those characters from writing them that it's all going to feel alien, and you're going to be like, the whole time.
Yeah.
Just let them play characters in that setting. That's great. Otherwise, go write your novel, and hopefully it will sell, and you'll get a TV show.
Yeah, it's really it drifts into Heartbreaker land, where you're so invested in this thing, but you really have to treat them as two different media, right? So your role-playing version of, like, your book, you craft everything, you control every aspect of it, every word, every plot twist, whatever. In the role-playing game, you just toss it in there, and then really what you should be looking at is like, I wonder what will happen.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
That's why it's so tough to run any game based on a popular media and play the characters. It's like, we're going to play Star Wars. Who wants to play Luke Skywalker? It's very difficult because you'll inevitably get two people arguing over Luke wouldn't say that or do that kind of thing. That's why whenever I run in the Marvel universe, I always have, you're going to create your own character group. You guys are Avengers Buffalo. Go for it.
Yeah.
Rust Belt Avengers.
Rust Belt Avengers. Yep.
All right, we have gone like total left to Clyde on this.
Well,
Thank you, Bob. Bring us back in.
That's a great plot.
So let's go back in and keep going. I don't know, where the hell were we?
Jerry, we're up to.
Okay, well, wait. We have one more thing for Bob, which is for the player side. How do you keep track of all the plots as a player, Bob?
I don't. I'm shitty like that. I'm terrible.
No, I don't think that's shitty. I don't think that's shitty. I don't think it's a requirement.
No, it's not a requirement, but I just kind of, the way I play, there are certain things, if it directly affects my character, sometimes I will make a note of it, but I don't even do it every time when it's directly affecting me. I fly by the seat of my pants when I play, which there is a downside to that, because especially in groups like us, where we have 2 weeks off in between, and if you miss one, now it's 4 weeks.
Yeah.
And I will get to a session and I'll be like, I don't remember what the hell's going on. But usually between everybody at the table, somebody will say something and somebody else, and and then it all comes back to me, and I'm like, I know where we are in the moment. I'm good. But I don't really actively track plot stuff and that kind of stuff. I just kind of, I wing it.
You go with what's interesting, right? I know we've had meta discussions. Like, we had a discussion in Forbidden Lands where I had two competing plot lines. We had this threat that was happening around the lake where you guys live that had to do with some religious zealots. Yep. And then we had a thing that we had been working on for quite some time, an idea that we were going to go on a quest for quite some time. We were just waiting for winter to pass. And we got to a point where I was like, hey, before we play the next session, do you want to go on the quest, or do you want to deal with the thing at the lake, with the understanding that, and I did this totally as meta as a GM, there's no penalty if you leave to go on the quest. Like, I'm not going to sack your fortress.
Yeah.
Like I put this thing out here and it seems like an immediate threat, and it seems like the kind of thing that you have to focus your time on or whatever. But I don't but if you want to go do the quest, which involves traveling away from, the keep and going to do this thing. Like, I promise you, I won't sack your keep. Like, that storyline will pick back up when you're back near the keep. And after you guys talked about it, and we did it, I think at the end of a session, you guys were like, no, we want to go, we've been talking about going on this quest, since fall. We want to go, on it when the spring comes. And I was like, cool. All right, good. And then I, prepped from there. I don't know. I asked that question because I was just curious, but I don't think, like, as a GM, again, my younger, more dickish self was like, you have to do your part in this game. Like, you have to keep up your end because I'm doing all this work. But like, I don't subscribe to any of that shit anymore. Like, you are showing up to the game and playing. I'm engaged while
good. Things are going on.
Yes, I'm good.
I'm in the game. It's just the other problem for me, and this is a flaw in my cognitive abilities, right? I can't take notes without grinding everything to a halt so I can take the notes. So, like, for example, if I was in a business meeting at work and someone said, you're going to take the minutes, I'd be like, look, you do not want me to take the minutes for this thing because I literally cannot write this down and still be listening to what's going on. I can't multitask like that. You guys quite often will have a TV show on in the background while you're doing something else and say you're watching the show while you do the thing. I literally cannot do that. I'm either watching the show or I'm doing the other thing. I can't do both, with one minor exception. But so if it comes to I'm going to take notes at the table during an RPG, I can't, if there's stuff going on and I start writing something down, I'll be like, hey, what just happened? Because I'll miss something. So
I from a strictly from a work point of view, because I often run meetings and often take minutes of the meetings I'm running, I'm actually pretty adept at kind of like listening, writing notes, and kind of keeping things going. Although you've all heard me say in a game, hang on for a second, I need to write this down.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I will just stop a game for a second, write a few notes on my index card, and then like pick my head back up.
But that would be me during every bullet point of their PowerPoint presentation. I'd be like, hang on.
Yeah.
Hang on. Well, this is why when I do PowerPoints at work, I will always print out a copy that I hand out to everybody. So I'm like, you don't have to take these notes. If this is important, you keep it. In the game, what has happened, and this is where the computers have been excellent, we always have a couple of documents on Google Drive. And if I'm in a game and the GM has not set one up, I will set one up.
Yep.
But I'll just start, editable by everybody. As a player, I'll set one up and I'll just start, keeping track of names and stuff and encourage people to go in. And some people will go in and use it. As a GM, I normally have a couple of them. I'll normally have one that's going to be just characters. Here's our dramatis personae, everybody in the game. And if somebody makes a comment about something, because it's open, you meet the bartender, and I'll say, tell me the bartender. It's Filipina the bartender. Somebody will put Filipina the bartender in that little note. And then we have another one that's just all the major events, what happened, who they met, what they did. And I tend to do a paragraph summary of what happened last week. In my Eberron game, Chris reads it in 1920s era. Last week on the adventure game, the people went into it, did this kind of thing. And people add commentary, they can go in and edit it up. But it means that the people who do take notes can keep track of notes for everybody else. Because I hit my stride as a GM when I was in college, where I had two players who took meticulous notes. And if I was running a game and they met Bob was a supervillain and he escaped from prison, and they went to interview the warden, and the players would ask, well, who are the people in the cells next to him? And I would just be tossing names off the top of my head and making stuff up. Somebody was writing all that down, and at the end of the game, they'd hand me the page so I could put it into our notebook. Because then later on, they could go back and use it as a follow-up. So it's really good. I like the idea of that's how I, as a player, track it. I'll keep a computer document that everybody can edit, so that the GM can also go back in and correct things or add in stuff that's important. If we all missed the fact that the bartender had a big gold tooth with the symbol of, the House of Vecchione on it, he might put that into the document so you can go back and read that, because he may have dropped that in conversation. We all missed it. So anyway.
I assume none of that's going to happen in my games. I'm happy to just recap. I keep good notes for myself, so I'm happy to just be the guy who's like, hey, last time we played, like we did this, and then slowly, like as the players kind of like, oh, right, yeah, I'll be like, cool, if everybody's good, let's get back in. But I used to be the dick. Like I'm pretty sure some of this is even out on Gnome Stew if you do a deep enough dive. Like I used to be the dick who'd be like, you players have to write the recap for the game coming up, like because I'm gonna make you do like, man, listen, I was kind of an asshole as an early GM, like in a kind of like arrogant, like I'm going to make you guys do work. I'm going to make you guys love this kind of like, I learned to let go of all of that over time. Like I keep my expectations. Like, don't get me wrong. If people want to make a Google Doc and keep track of it during the game, I love them. I love them. I never make it a requirement anymore. I used to make all that shit requirements. But if players self-organize, it's great. If not, I'm going to be there for you. I'm going to remind you what we did. I'll get you back into the game.
Cool. All right.
One last thing. I was back in the days of...
Never getting out of here.
No, so just let me take a second. If you guys... Back in the days when I used to do actual XP as opposed to milestone, I used to give players extra experience points for adding more to whatever online document we had.
Oh, I did that too. I did that shit as well.
Oh, no, that just encouraged people to add all their side comments, their own observations.
Oh, I know. I did all that
Let
nonsense.
The writers write. Okay, so for me, I've also had the same problem that we've all had, which is that because of COVID and the election and the just horrible situation we've been in until the last couple of weeks, we've missed a lot of games. So I've only really been running one. I ran Savage Worlds, and for most of the year, I've been trying to kind of adapt it because Savage Worlds, while it's an easy game system to run, and it's not just the game where you punch people, but that's what it's designed for. I've been importing a lot of indie game mechanics into my Savage Worlds games. I've been doing a lot of stuff with partial successes, basically fail forward, treating most failures as a 6- from Dungeon World. Something happens, but we move the plot forward. Unless they roll a critical fumble, nothing really horrible happens, which actually happened a couple weeks ago when they were trying to fix their skyship, rolled a critical fumble, and part of the skyship fell off. But they all loved it, and I actually said, okay, what's a good critical fumble? And somebody said, the part we're working on fell off. And I'm like, okay, now we know where the plot's going. The second thing I've used is bonds. Really important because I started the game with one group of players. The following week, that group couldn't make it, and we added 2 more players, and then everybody else dropped out, and I suddenly had a different group of players by week 4. And then when COVID hit, we lost 2 of them and added another one to the online game. And so I've had to keep adding players to the game without a session 0 to tie them all together. And using bonds and leading questions has made it really easy. Something that Bob has always been very good at. When Bob joined our Eberron game in Chris's house, he was within like 10 minutes, he was part of that team because we just kept building on what happened with his character. And he kept playing into all the suggestions. Same thing as it wasn't, okay, here comes Schmitty's character who has a big secret that the players know, but the characters don't. And how do you guys know this character? Why would they be in your group? And just kept tying these bonds together so that they had links and common NPCs in that they knew. And they even tossed a couple of NPCs that Schmitty hadn't met yet, but the other players had. They tossed them into suggestions so that now Schmitty's character, Saphira, the consulting detective, had a link back to them. So that by the end of the first adventure, there wasn't just a reason why they were working together. There was a reason why they were trusting each other and working together as a team and could feed off each other as they go. And that's okay. And I think that really worked well because I don't have the problem I've had with past groups where 5 or 6 adventures in, you look at the players and go, why are these characters even in the same group together? If they weren't sitting at a table, these people would never be in a party together. This group has a reason. Go ahead, Bob or Phil.
I was going to say that for me is that for me actually came. So I like what you're saying, right, about pulling in indie mechanics, and I love bonds for that. But before bonds, before PBTA, Fear the Boot used to do this, and I forget, they had a name for this. It's been so long. I credit them because they definitely came up with it, but I forget what I think maybe they called it the player contract or something like that. But essentially, the idea was the group had to explain why they were a group. So they had to, like, whatever kind of characters they made, whatever kind of backgrounds they gave them, there was an onus on the players to come up with, why are you a functional group? Because that was simply just a non-starter for their table culture. Yep. Like it was like, okay, because like I remember one of their, like, then I'm going back, like this is like 5 or 6 years, like they were playing this D&D game, like one of their characters was like a gnoll, like another one was like an elf, and they were like, they just, before they got to the table, they had to come up with a reason, like, why are you all together?
Yep.
And it has to be like, even if you're all going to, in the first session, meet in a bar, you still have had to, before the session one, explain why you're a coherent group. And I thought that was excellent.
Yeah, they called it a group template.
Group template. Who got that?
There we go.
Good.
I
yes.
just Googled them.
Thank you. Man, so they were like, so bonds, I love bonds because bonds are those, I will forever love them as Dungeon World bonds, because Dungeon World bonds are so wonderfully pointed, and actually create their own like little mini stories when you connect them all together. But yes, I am a huge proponent of this, right? Like if your game does, and we did this for New Monera, we sat down and I was like, why are you guys like friends? Like, why are you like, what are we doing here? Like, and we came up with like a whole reason for it. And once it was set, it was like, okay, so we understand who knows who and how you guys know each other and, where you used to hang out, whatever. And that always, I agree. For me, that is just a non-starter in a game. I don't like the, even a paladin and a chaotic evil assassin and, why are we friends? My only exception to that is, and it actually has an explanation, is DCC. Yeah. Like your party is very diverse, but you have a lot of shared history thanks to the funnel.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like the reason you're all together. Yeah. The reason you're all together is because you are survivors of like some serious messed up stuff. And that's good enough.
Yeah. All
right. So anyway, Jerry, go back. Tell us more about, did you have more to pack onto that about importing indie game?
That was pretty much, and mostly just, and this isn't necessarily the indie game, but I really lean heavily into leading questions. Just if they meet somebody for the first time, unless there is 100% definite reason why they shouldn't know who this person is or have some link to them, I ask them a couple questions, and if one player is doing something and the other players aren't, and there are some bystanders, I just let them jump in. And to be honest, the players are getting so good at it. They did it like this Sunday. The gnome healer / assassin murderer was busy trying to talk to an elemental while two enemy bodyguards were standing behind her, observing her. And as she's doing something, all of a sudden, Schmitty and Chris just jumped in to play those two bodyguards and the dialogue that was going on as they were basically observing her and interacting with her. And I'll let the players do that all the time, where if there's something going on and there's two NPCs that aren't going to directly like attack at the drop of a hat, if the other players want to just jump in and play them, let them do it. And I'll sometimes give them a little piece of information like, oh, you're watching this person because of X, Y, and Z. And then let them do it. And it's more fun.
So it's interesting because it brings up it brings up an interesting point, right? There are when we talk about importing indie, quote, indie stuff, there's really two aspects, and this is true, I think, for all games, right? So there's mechanically, what are you doing? And then there's like narratively what you're doing, because I can bring in all sorts of indie narrative tools into games that I'm running, any game I'm running, and make them work, right? So leading questions, which is, leading questions is a great one, right? Like I can use leading questions in a Cyberpunk Red game.
I love leading questions
and will, right? Like I'll use leading questions. I use leading questions all the time when, part of it's just sometimes as a GM, I'm like, I don't know, make something up about this NPC just to see what I can play off of it, right? Like that kind of thing. So there definitely is, what do you bring into your game mastering style, right? So I love leading questions, that kind of bond thing, right? That's, I don't even put mechanics around it. I'll just like have the session 0 or session 1 discussions about like, how are you guys friends? Why are you a group kind of thing? Make those connections. But then I know, you have listed here partial successes, right? So I'm playing Numenera, and I'm doing the same thing with like, I'm treating the GM intrusion like a 6-. Like if you roll a GM intrusion, I'm like, I'll decide whether it's a failure or not. And I'll mess around with whatever by taking the intrusion. And if I'm going to actually create a GM intrusion, that's like me just forcing a 6-, and it's not necessarily forcing a 6-, but I will force a complication of the game by paying you off because that's the mechanic for it, which I totally love as well. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But the other thing that I do that's very indie, that I think is more indie, is that I will frame die rolls. So I will try very hard not to be like, this roll is binary. You will either learn something or not learn something. I will instead change it to, you will learn something before X happens, or you will learn something and X will happen because it took you too long. Yeah. Right. And so this way, like by reframing success and failure, I can create those indie-like things with especially like in Numenera, with like a binary pass-fail system.
Yeah, that makes a huge difference because it allows you to be flexible in the game. So,
yeah, I think we may have talked about it before in either a salon or a garage about framing success and failure. But framing success and failure is a super powerful tool that I originally learned from Burning Wheel. Not that I even played Burning Wheel, but I was just like trying to learn Burning Wheel. I think Avi has played a good deal of Burning Wheel, but framing success and failure is like a huge tool that will turn something binary into something like far more interesting.
There's something to non-binary results that also play to players who tend to be a little bit more cautious, because if you have non-binary results, players are more likely to take risks if they know that failure isn't going to be complete and total failure.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not just about, we can go into the whole trusting the GM not to screw you over thing, but just in general, once you play with GMs and you realize, okay, if I do this and I fail, I'm not going to get what I want, but something else is going to happen that's going to be interesting. They're more likely to think creatively, try different uses for their skills or abilities or their traits or whatever, and you end up with a much less mechanical game and a much better story game. And even the min-maxers in your group will take off with that. And I'll talk about that in Bob's thing. But just that's something I think sees a lot of use. I really love I run almost every game I can now with some sort of non-binary result if I can. I think that non-binary is best. So,
hey, Bob, I'm just going to ask you from a time perspective, should we stop for a break or should we do your section and then stop for a break?
I don't think, honestly, that we're going to burn up too much time.
All right, let's roll. Let's do it.
Let's just do it.
Roll.
Okay, so the game I decided to talk about is something we talk about here a lot, and that's Minecraft. What, you say? No.
What?
How can this be? Yeah, I started up another solo game recently, and whenever I do a solo instance, I turn on cheats. And I turn on cheats because it lets me issue command line requests that alter the gameplay. Okay? Such as I can change the mode of the game from survival to creative so that I can fly around if I want to, or I can grab something that I need that I can't find, whatever. I can change the time of the game, the time of day, if it's going to be night, I can set the time back to 0 and have it be day and not have to play through the night if I'm not prepared to do anything in the night of the game. And I can turn off the rain if it gets raining, because sometimes when you don't sleep, it starts raining and it just keeps raining until you sleep. Now, I say all of this because when I do this, I'm not interested in the exact 100% game as it was designed to play out of the box.
Yeah.
The other thing I do is I go into creative mode and I give myself an angel ring relatively early, and then I give myself enough grid power to run that angel ring, and then that lets me fly around so I don't have to switch back and forth between creative and survival as much, and then I use that to assist myself in the parts of the game that I do like, which is exploration and building creative stuff, doing creative, and I'm using creative in the not in the game mode in the game mode way, but in the personal. I like to build interesting things, aesthetics, structures. So that's what I get out of the game. So I basically ignore some of the rules, I bypass some of the rules, and I go for a different game experience when I'm playing the solo. So taking that into the RPG space, we're going to discuss breaking or ignoring the rules of the game, otherwise known as when role-playing or the story are more important than your codified rules.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you guys think about that?
I will say, so first of all, I will say for Minecraft that I also turn on cheats when I'm playing a solo instance. Now, I don't use them a lot, but the number one place I will use them is if I get killed and I have trouble recovering my body.
Yep.
So then I will quick kick into creative mode, recover my body kind of thing.
Yeah.
But for instance, I was playing, and I'll talk about this a little bit in the next segment, but I was playing the stone block instance of Minecraft, and I'm down to the end of this thing, right? And so one of the things that you need to do is defeat this thing called the Chaos Chicken. I don't even want to go into it. It's like it'll be here forever. Anyway, I fought it twice, and it killed me 2 times, right? Like I did some damage to it, but like it killed me 2 times, and I was getting kind of stressed out about it. And I have a rule about Minecraft, right? Minecraft is a game that I play to relax. So anytime that, and I don't mind, I've been killed a few times, and, I've been, attacked by monsters and stuff like that. So I'm not looking for a totally threatless Minecraft game. But when you get to the big boss stuff, if I get killed once or twice, on regular, and I can't seem to get past it, I have a rule like, look, I'm not going to get mad about this. I'm not getting stressed out about this. I'll just kick the game into creative, clear whatever it is I need to clear. Like maybe I just won't fight this guy again. I'll just go back and get my body or whatever. In the case of the Chaos Chicken, I just killed it so I could get the thing I needed so that I could finish playing out the last part of the game. I'm very good with that. I'm somewhat okay with it in role-playing games. I tend to play games pretty much rules written, which also means that I don't play certain games when I don't like either the lack of control or things in the game. Like I don't like D20 games that much because I don't like it has like almost zero control over the outcome of the dice, right? There's like, if a game doesn't have hero points or if a game doesn't have, whatever, I tend not to like those things. I like PBTA games better in that respect. And I like other more traditional games, Numenera, things like that handle some of those situations better. But I have been known in games to bend the rules, especially if it's going to result in character death is one that I just I'm just not one to lose a lot of characters unless the game is about losing characters. Right? Like in DCC, I will not save any of you. We are playing that game. It has enough mechanics to try to save you. I will not save you in DCC. But like Bob's character died in Forbidden Lands when Sean's character fumbled a spell check to heal him and killed him instead. And I was just like, this isn't doing it for me. Like, one, this isn't very heroic, and two, this is kind of a shitty way to go anyway, to get killed on a spell fumble. So I just, I have a trick, and I've done it before, where, I will send you to your maker and then send you back with a purpose.
Yep.
And I was okay with that, right? I was like, this will work. This will totally work for the game. And I did it. And I was like, that's fine. Like, I guess, and it's the same thing I said to you, because we were talking the other night. We were both playing Minecraft, and you're like, oh, I put the game in creative and I'm doing X, Y, and Z. And I was like, that's fine. Like, you play the game to have fun. Like, your fun, like, if your fun for the game is to throw it in creative and load up a bunch, like, get a couple things so that you don't have to struggle with those things in game or have to worry about certain aspects of the game, and you want to just do, like, play the other parts of it, like, that's cool. Like I said, I approach Minecraft a little differently, but I don't begrudge anyone for how they want to play. And when we play on the server, especially the first night on the server, Schmitty changes it night to day, almost for the first couple hours of the game, so that we can all get started.
Yeah.
So I'm totally with it, right? Like, I'm totally with you about, like, I'm not into this thing like, oh, you play in and out of creative, so, like, you're just playing on easy mode. Whatever. Yeah. If that's your fun, have your fun.
Yeah, I've said before, I don't play video games to challenge myself. I will always play video games, at least starting out, on easy mode. I'm not interested in how clever the video game designer made this particular level. I just want to go through it. I'm there in every game I'm there to build things, help people, and murder the hell out of shit. And that's basically what I'm there for. And anything that helps me do those three things. I mean, I do like a good challenge later on once I'm getting better at things. But I have no trouble with, I don't know how to turn on cheat modes in Minecraft. But if I did, I would have no trouble doing them. When I'm playing games like video games, like when I was playing Mass Effect, I was having a miserable time until Angie's like, Jerry, just play it on easy mode. You'll love it. And once I put on easy mode, I was having a ball with it. Yeah. And it was much because I wasn't interested in how good of a shooter could I be or whatever. So I think that there's nothing wrong with that in a video game. In role-playing games, as a GM, I regularly toss the rule book out the window. I like games that have very few rules. When I ran Pathfinder, I ran it for quite some time and had a good time with it. And right off the bat at session 0, I told the players, we're going to scrap like 2/3 of these feats because they just seem to be redundant or make you pay slots for things that you should, you're a fighter, you should know how to trip people. If you want to trip people, make a trip roll. I'm not going to worry about it. And if you're a spellcaster and you want to make potions, spend the time, make the dice rolls, make a potion. I'm not going to make you take a feat to make a potion. That frustrated some players. Most of them, actually, all of them but one liked it. We had one player who was very, very strictly rules lawyery, and for him, we had to work with him a little bit because he liked everything to be exactly as written in the book. But I don't mind with that in other games having, explain to the min-maxer and let them min-max to their heart's content. On a side note, as I used to run for a lot of groups where we would have very mixed player groups. You'd have like 4 or 5 story players and one min-max or combat monster with a little bit of story interest. And I actually found that useful because they would get into situations where they might have to have some combat. And when you've got the guy who is just tooled up for combat and you've got 3 players who have one combat skill between them, that this guy gets to shine and go crazy. They're just running around in the background creating advantages or talking to the cat or whatever. That's okay, but I will often go through rule books and say, okay, I don't like this rule. And a lot of it goes back to what I said before. I'll import a rule from an indie game. I'll take a traditional or old school design game and just say, okay, this is what this does. How would you guys feel if we just took this one little element out and did this with it instead? We're going to import the heist rules from Savage Worlds. We're going to I'm going to bring in bennies and hero points or something like that. Just something in there to make you guys more heroic. Mm-hmm. But that's me. I don't feel super changed to a rule set unless it's important, like in Dungeon World, where you really kind of have to follow the rules and moves a little bit. So
I try very hard to play the game as written because I really just want to experience what the game master has in mind. But I will also say that after I've played it like that once, I'm not above being like, okay, now that I've experienced it, here are some things we're going to do differently. Like, we actually play Forbidden Lands incorrectly, in that we missed a rule early on where when you take damage to one of your stats, you should roll less dice. And when we realized it, I was just like, we only have 3 players. We don't have like a ton of players in this game, and combat is really dicey. I have a lot of trouble in Forbidden Lands understanding when a combat is handily won or when it's about to fall off a cliff and turn into a total party kill. Like, it is really hard to sometimes piece that.
It's a bit swingy.
I don't know if it's swingy or it's just like one good roll can do a lot of damage.
In a way, it's very Savage Worlds like that. If you get one of those exploding situations where you keep maxing out that die, you can take that big bad down. Boom, boom, boom.
Yep. So, and because you guys are a small party, like when we discovered the error, I was like, I have no interest in fixing this. If you guys want to fix it, I'm totally fine. We can play that way. Like, we'll just start from this point on playing it correctly. And everybody was like, no, it's okay. It makes the game a little extra heroic. And I was like, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm good. Like, it's, again, life, you know what? Life is fucking short.
Exactly.
And like, you should be like, your game should be fun. I can remember so many years.
That is so important.
I can remember so many years of playing where games were frustrating or players were frustrating or whatever. And I'm like, I'm so not about.
Yeah.
I'm so not about that now. Like, I'm here to have some fun.
Yeah. To me, it goes back to the discussion about maybe you're playing the wrong game.
Sure.
Okay.
Absolutely.
If you sit there and you're like, all right, we're going to take this game. We're going to take Pathfinder. And we're going to strip out this, and this. We're going to add in this. We're going to tweak this so that's this different. And by the time you're done, you are so far from Pathfinder that it's not like you can't use that word anymore. Like, if you're doing that, there might be a different game out there that does the thing that you want it to do.
I mean, I'll step it up from might to probably
because there are so many different games now.
Yeah.
But
the funny thing about Pathfinder was that they actually had a game element that did what most of the feats do. They had that combat maneuver, combat defense thing.
Sure.
And then they added a whole bunch of feats that made you trigger a feat to use that. If you just said no, scrap all the feats that you have to have it to do this ability you have.
Yeah.
It made the game full smooth. We didn't like suddenly move from like a D20 to like a 3D6 thing or something like that.
Yeah. So in essence, all those tweaks that you made to your Pathfinder game, you were still playing Pathfinder.
Yeah, we streamlined it.
So we had a couple of tweaks in Forbidden Lands. We're still playing Forbidden Lands.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
It's a little teeny bit more heroic, but for the most part, we're adhering to the rules. So it's a matter of if what you're doing enhances the play experience, makes it more fun at the table, but doesn't completely change the game to something that's unrecognizable from what's in the book,
sure,
then, go with it. You're not breaking any laws. The people who wrote the book aren't going to come to your house, confiscate your books, or throw them in a fire. Yeah. Like, playing 5th edition D&D, the 3E D&D folks aren't going to come to your house and be like, why aren't you playing 3? Everybody can play their own thing. So, yeah, that to me was the key point. As long as you're not totally making it a completely... If you're taking 3rd edition Dungeons and Dragons and you're turning it into Dungeon World, just pull out the Dungeon World book and play Dungeon World.
Yep.
Seek your happiness.
Seek your happiness.
That is exactly right.
All right, so that was our initial run through. I have no idea if it took longer than it should have, but hey, we talked and we did some stuff. So we are going to go and talk to the chat room for a bit. But first, I want to tell you about Bonus Experience. There is a different guest host right now with Monica Danielle, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. But Ray and Monica generally, and now at the moment, Monica and Danielle are two old friends exploring gameplay and design through the lens of diversity while also sharing some of the dumbest humor gaming has to offer. You should really check them out. Bonus experience is awesome, and I think you will enjoy it if you check it out. So please go do so.
They taught me one of my favorite phrases. Die mad about it.
Yeah, baby.
Right?
There you go. So
chat room's chatty.
Yeah, definitely been chatty. And they are very very much into the whole gaming discussion for sure. Apparently, Avi the Jackal is very into a game called Monster Train, which I am seriously curious about. Although it's probably something that it would be not something that I could just jump on instantly, but maybe not. It's a procedurally generated deck builder. So it's the grandchild of Dominion and Rogue, but they've brought in a whole bunch of ideas from different strategy games. It's got a ton of replay value, and it's Avi finds it's a constant chain of interesting strategic decisions and recommends it for fans of deck builders, Magic the Gathering, Slay the Spire, and those kind of things.
It's out on Steam.
It sounds interesting. And since it's on Steam, I may check it out. My time is limited for gaming, but...
Avi also named one of my other favorite games this year, which is Hades.
Hades, yeah.
Hades is a lot of fun.
Right now.
Hades is not relaxing for me. Like, I like playing Hades for a little while, but when I play Hades, I don't talk to the rest of you. Like, when we're in Mumble, all you hear me is you hear me playing with me going, fuck, shit, fuck.
Hades is a tension builder, man.
Right. Yeah, so I like Hades quite a bit, and actually I would be really interested in seeing the RPG version of it where you go out, you do a thing, you die, and when you resurrect is when you advance your character.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
Because that's basically the game loop in Hades is like you have to go out in the world to get stuff, but you can't do anything of use with it until you die and come back to the House of Hades. And go to your room and do your level ups and stuff. Yeah. And it's really cool because it does, and we've talked about it before. We've talked, because I talked about it when I started playing it. But it's got a really interesting core loop that I find to be quite fun. But I don't find Hades to be relaxing. Minecraft to me is relaxing because really in Minecraft, I mean, here's the secret, right? In vanilla Minecraft, once you have iron armor and at least an iron sword, the chance that you're going to die in a random monster encounter in vanilla is pretty low. Yeah. And if you're playing modded, there's any number of armors that will keep you from getting reasonably killed. And once you obtain one or two certain weapons, you can pretty much guarantee that you'll be around.
Yeah.
So combat isn't really a thing. Combat's a nice threat.
Yeah. And there are people that enjoy it so much that they've made mods that ramp it up.
Yeah, which is not a thing for me. Like I like doing the tech thing to get the weapon, like for instance, the shuriken.
Yeah.
Because once I reach my favorite shuriken build, I can pretty much ensure that I can stay ahead of the monsters for the rest of the game. But yeah, so Minecraft for me, like you, is like about I like a little exploration, I like a lot of architecture, and I like doing the tech mods, right? I like progressing through the tech mods and things like that. So but yeah, I like Hades. I just don't relax when I play Hades. Hades is a thing where I have to be like, my energy's high, I want to play some Hades, or I'm going to play some Hades and then I'm going to go play some Minecraft to kind of calm down.
Have a cool down after.
And I'm, in a perilous emotional state where I make, those are value judgments I make before I do something now. Like, is this going to inherently make me feel better?
Yeah.
So,
all right. On the topic of rules being in the way at times, Jared Rasher actually wrote an article on Gnome Stew, Rules in the Way, where he talked about he prefers that rules run in the background rather than just get out of the way. If you want too many rules to get out of the way, you may not enjoy the game that you've got in your hand, which, again, try a different game because there's probably one out there that does the experience that you want. So do check out that article, and there's tons of other good stuff there on Gnome Stew, of course. What else we got here?
it's funny because I think about it, like back in the but even back in the 80s, like there was always another game to play. Like nowadays there are more games than you could possibly know, right? Like it's impossible to keep track of the number of games that are being created like on a yearly basis. In the 80s, it was a lot easier to kind of keep track of. There was like a more finite.
Back in the day when you're like, oh, we want to find a different game to play, you were jumping genres. Like, okay, we don't want to play D&D anymore. Let's play Star Frontiers, or let's go play, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Other Strangeness, or whatever. You didn't have a lot of overlap in genre with different games,
unless it was fantasy.
If
it was fantasy, there was like there's always been too much fantasy in role playing. There, I said it, people. I said it,
Depending
and I mean
on what
it.
you were brought up on.
There's too much fantasy in role playing games.
Takeaway.
Not enough sci-fi. Set it right there. Put it on the table.
But now we are in a heyday of RPG abundance. There are so many games of different styles and different play experiences in the same spaces. So it's like, you want to play some cyberpunky type stuff. There's probably 10 different games at least that you can play that will give you similar experiences with different rule sets and different focuses. And so, that's
it's out there.
That's a thing. So
go on Twitter and just ask. Like, if you're just like, hey, I'm playing this game and it's not doing it for me. But I really like this genre, or I really like this type of mechanic or whatever. Like, if you just put that out on Twitter, like, probably more than you're going to want.
Yeah.
People are going to tell you games that will...
People have opinions, so...
Yes.
Avi just made a pointed comment that maybe if he could buy a finished version of H2O, he wouldn't need to play fantasy.
I would like to state that there is a fully functional ashcan that will play a arc of H2O.
Yes.
That is out there. It exists. People could definitely play that game. Yeah. I mean, listen. I mean, on the H2O front, like, that would require us to run a Kickstarter in the middle of 2020, thing that I have not been emotionally prepared to do.
But it's coming.
Yeah,
it's still on the docket. It's
not going anywhere.
Yeah,
it's not going anywhere. But before it is going to be Turning Point, because Turning Point is actually all written. Like, Turning Point's done.
Yeah.
When the pandemic hit, we were in the process of doing a final read through. Sen and I were reading through it before we handed it off to editing.
And I believe there were some high-level discussions of the Kickstarter as well.
Oh, yeah. We were starting to do some initial Kickstarter planning and stuff. I just, like, I mean, other people, and bless them for running Kickstarters in 2020. But I know what running a Kickstarter took for us. And
I would have been like all twitchy, and I was way less affected by the Kickstarters we did than you were. You would have been a mess trying to run a Kickstarter.
Yeah, and I mean, I've talked about this before, right? Yeah. Like, when the pandemic hit, my job went into overdrive.
Yep.
My job hasn't slowed down. Like, the pandemic only made me more busy. Like, there is no way I could be sitting in a house with 2 virtual school kids with my own job and managing a Kickstarter right now. I mean, I could, but they don't offer edibles in this state.
You can get them.
Yeah, I mean, yes, but I really wanted to just buy them from a store, not from like
to get
a
them
guy.
Legit,
Yeah.
Okay.
Fuck New York, man! Come on, New York, get on the ball.
I don't think we're far away from that, honestly.
That is money on the table, Cuomo.
Yeah, that it's going to happen.
All right.
Okay, so on to our next segment, which is the media we are consuming segment. Booyah.
Yeah, I'm going to tighten us up on this one. Instead of having a full discussion, I want to just talk a little bit about a media, and then how it relates to gaming. We'll try to keep the side chat.
We won't go
chit chat down.
Yeah.
So I'm reading The Peripheral by Gibson. This is not the newest Gibson book. It's the one before it. I think the Agency is the newest one, which I think I want to read. Well, I'm going to just put it on my Christmas list because that's an easy get. Someone will get me that off of Amazon, kind of thing. So anyway, I'm reading The Peripheral by Gibson, and one of the things I really like, and this is just a Gibson thing in general, except for Neuromancer to some extent, the story takes place in two different characters, so alternating chapters. You cover two different characters on their own arcs, and then in Gibson style, eventually the two threads start to connect. In some cases in Gibson books, this is a very late stage thing. So if you read Count Zero, like those thread lines don't collapse on each other until the end of the book. In The Peripheral, about midway through the book, the plot lines begin to start to interact with each other. But from a role-playing perspective, I used to do this a lot in games when I was a little more prep heavy. I used to actually kind of thread individual character arcs in ways like a Gibson book where I would have them converge into a thing. I remember probably the most elaborate one I did was for our vampire game, where all the players had kind of their own story arc, but it all kind of collapsed together into this like big major event of the campaign. And it took a fairly significant amount of work to kind of string these personal arcs and get them to all converge in the right place. I don't know if it would work in my current style of GMing, but it did. That's what Gibson books always make me think of, because that's where I learned it from. I learned it from Gibson and then applied it into my games. So that was just my random RPG thought about running parallel storylines for characters and then having them converge at a moment where all of a sudden everything the players have been doing turns out to all be connected and necessary to do whatever the climax of that larger arc is. Okay, that's me.
Cool.
All right. I really have been consuming a lot of non-standard media lately. I don't read books. I haven't really had a chance to even listen to podcasts or anything lately, so I haven't even listened to books on tape. Mostly I've just been reading old role-playing game books. I have a nephew who decided to get into role-playing games, and he asked me for some advice. He also asked me if I had any dice I could spare. Which, if you know me, you know that I have plenty of dice I could spare. So I've been actually going back and looking at the part of the book that I normally skip over in most games, which is, so you're new to role-playing games, and reading new GM advice for some role-playing games. I pulled out Star Frontiers and Genesis and a couple, just reading through them to see what looks good so I could put together a list of advice. I actually started out my list, though, with some stuff that's not in those books, which was safety tools and session zero and making sure and spotlighting players to make sure that everybody, the three things that I think that I wish I would have known when I was a young GM. That, first of all, the X card, why it's important, and why safety tools like the X card and the OK check-in and that are important, not just for, oh my God, I'm afraid of spiders, which is an important thing to have, but also for just things like, I don't like the way this situation is going, or I'm not uncomfortable with, without having to explain why. Just let's move on from this. And how that makes games, so many games when I was younger would have been so much better if we would have had that going on, so that a player who felt a little out of their sorts could simply move the plot on to something they liked. And that's, I looked at that, and the importance of having a coherent group. We talked about that earlier tonight, about making sure that there's a reason why they're there, get some feelings. And then going into, lastly, telling them basically, don't try to reach for the moon. Have an idea what you want to do in your game, but don't feel that you have to detail everything unless you want to. I mean, you're 16, so you have expendable time to actually do that kind of thing, but you don't have to. You could just focus on where you guys are now and make the rest of it up. I'm going to tell them, that the big secret of being a game master is that we make up 90% of what's going on based on what's going on in the game. Doesn't matter what we've written down or how much we could have detailed everything that's going to go on, and we're still going to make up 90% of it because you guys are not going to follow the plot. Yeah.
Again,
learn how to read the table.
Yep, learn how to read the table.
That's my low investment idea, right? Yep. So it's all gonna change It's best to just come in with a little something, see where it goes.
Yep.
I mean, if they decide that they're gonna follow the cute pig that you decided by mistake, and that's what they're interested in, use it. Don't have that pig be owned by the evil villain, but maybe it wanders over towards the next plot hook and gets them involved in that. Use coincidences and so on to keep them going, but don't tell them don't follow the pig.
The plot pig.
The plot pig. The plot pig.
There you go. That'll be a thing from now on. The plot pig.
Yep. Bacon. Anyway, this is the problem I have. I have a lot of friends who own rabbits, and for me, rabbits are a delicious meal. So it's a difficult thing to talk about.
Yeah.
Oh, yikes.
Okay.
I don't do that. I don't tell them how delicious their rabbit looks. I would not do that to somebody. But no, it's just basically what I've gotten. So I really have gotten away from reading books, and I really need to do more of that. I haven't read books in a long, long time. So
I go through cycles with that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I am currently down to the last 2 episodes of Supernatural's 15th and final season.
Is it the real final season?
It is over. It is the real final season. So they're wrapping up, and they are beating the crap out of these poor characters. They're just knocking them to the ground. Little glimmer of hope. Nope. Knock them to the ground again. Tons of callbacks to past episodes. Characters that you haven't seen in a while are coming back in, being reintroduced, and all kinds of stuff like that. It's fun, but it's kind of brutal, and it's kind of sad because it's almost over. But with the amount of a beating that these poor guys are taking, I'm hoping that means that they're setting them up for the good ending, where they will ultimately prevail and get the happy ending. Because if they give you one of those mediocre endings, that's just going to be like, oh, come on, you're killing me.
Yeah,
but agreed.
But yeah, this is a it's like it's a primer on like, remember that character that you had in episode 7 of season 5? Let's bring them back and be like, holy crap, look at this person again. Sometimes it's fun to harken back to one of the previous adventures, and give them that little bit of nostalgia or that little kick, like, remember when you helped out that paladin. Well, guess what? He's here to give you that refresher course on, you're not flying the straight and narrow. You've reached into the gray area, and you might want to pull yourself over before you cross that line fully into the darkness, and that kind of thing. So I like callbacks. Callbacks are one of my favorite things.
Mm-hmm.
I love callbacks, right? So I love, sometimes I find them hard to do when I'm improvising, like in the middle of a game, but in between sessions, as I'm laying stuff out, the ability to like kind of like being like, all right, I need an NPC to do this, like you said, right? Let's straighten, like I could come up with a dozen NPCs that could scold the characters for not being on the straight and narrow and be like, whoa, what was that paladin, right? And then this is where having the notes, right, from my session help, because then I'll go back like into my notes and be like, there's his name, like pull it out, drag it forward, right? Like, and I love it too, right? There's a psychology of callbacks, and we don't have to go into it tonight, but we've talked about it way long ago on the show. Might be a good Redux topic to do at some point, but the idea is that callbacks close loops.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So we love, like, human primate brains love things that complete, that connect. So having a character that we met and departed in one session and have it come back in another is a loop. We love loops. So yeah, callbacks are great. Callbacks are a great little GM trick. They also reinforce campaigns.
Yes.
Right, because campaigns feel, you want the passage of time to be something in a campaign, and so a callback is a reminder, like, oh wow, all these things have happened since we last saw the paladin.
Mm-hmm.
And even more compelling when the character that you're doing the callback with has had major growth. Like, oh, you remember that bartender that we rescued his daughter back in the first campaign arc, and you swing by that town now, and he owns the bar, and his daughter's grown up, and she works for him, and like you can see, like there's evidence of that growth, of the continuation of the world around you while you've been doing your thing.
We're going to get a little taste of that this week in Deep Space Nine.
Yay!
We're going to get a call. We're going to get a call back from, I think, a season 2 episode, right? The House of Quark. We're going to get a call back.
Looking for Carmack in all the wrong places.
Yep. And it's a great callback. It is a moment, like as soon as you see it, you'll be like, oh yes. And then it just makes, there's other ways they could have written there's other ways they could have written that story, but the callback makes it so much sweeter. There you go. Anyway, we should wrap this Salon segment. And I will just say this. Thank you for entertaining us, talking about a variety of topics. I can tell you with confidence that as long as we are still a republic by Friday, I should have enough energy to write the Puppet Master Adversaries episode. That's the one I wanted to write for tonight, but couldn't. Where we'll be looking at puppet masters in the same way that we looked at masterminds and conspiracies. And that'll be our last episode for the year, which we'll talk about next week as well.
Yeah.
Head us over.
Let's hit the conversation corner with a little noise. Boom, 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 boom. All right. So, the people that don't live in Buffalo, some of you have been blessed with this yourselves in different areas of the country, but Western New York has had ridiculously nice weather for November.
Record-breaking, ridiculously nice weather.
Ridiculously nice. So I've gotten out again and walked nearly every day. It's been super gorgeous. I've gotten a lot of extra steps, so I've gotten a lot of extra calories to work with. So that's been great. I am super enjoying season 3 of Discovery so far. I've mentioned to Phil already that he needs to get into the Discovery because this season they've got a Trill storyline going on, which is super interesting and compelling.
That's cool. I do like me some Trills.
So, and it's not what you would expect. So it's like, oh, nice. Okay, here we go. But they did a callback to I forget what the name of the caves are on the home planet of Trill, where they have those pools with the symbiotes in them. Yeah. So,
yeah.
Also worked my way through a bunch of Star Wars shorts on Disney Plus before finally jumping into the Resistance animated show, which I'm still kind of getting into it. The main character is a little bit.
How far into Resistance are you?
Like 3 or 4 episodes.
It towards the middle. It's like episode 6 or 7. All of a sudden, he stops being a child. And
he's kind of a goofball, kind of a
awkward idiot.
Yeah, awkward idiot.
Yeah.
But overall, it's interesting. I like the setting so far and stuff.
Yeah.
It's just not as compelling out of the gate as the other ones were. But good.
Still decent.
Yeah, Mandalorian season 2 hasn't disappointed me yet. It's a fun show, and I love the care that they're putting into it to do their all
Easter
the
eggs.
callbacks and the Easter eggs and this is the Star Wars universe, and we're just gonna, if something happens somewhere and we can take advantage of it. Oh, look, here's, these lizards that we saw in Clone Wars animated series. And now we're going to have live action versions of those and, stuff like that. It's like, Jon Favreau, Dave Filoni, brilliant job.
Callbacks.
Filoni
They're callbacks.
Callbacks. And then the last thing I'm going to say for my bit of the conversation corner is fantasy football sucks. And I do it all the time, and it pisses me off every time I do it.
What's your record now, Bob?
I'm 4-5.
I'm 3-6-9. I'm worse than you are.
It's like
360. Yeah.
But how about them Bills?
Yes, go Bills.
So good. Yep. I am happy every time they. There were twice now that they win and screwed over my fantasy football, and I'm happy as a clam with that.
Yeah.
So,
they're gonna do it to me again this weekend, I hope. So all right, Phil, what about you?
For me, a bunch of stuff got talked about throughout the episode, so I'll try to do some of them fast. Haven't been riding as much, which is sad because the weather has been nice, but by the time I get done with work, like light is fleeting, right? Like days are getting shorter. Still watching Voyager. Talked about that at the top of the hour. Voyager's still good. I quote finished. I think the better way to put it is I trumped my stone block pack. I got really close to the end and then just didn't want to do the rest of the work to finish it. So I just said I finished it. So I trumped my stone block pack for Minecraft, right? That was the stone block mod pack.
No one's done it better than you.
No one in the history of Minecraft has ever stone blocked like I stone blocked, and it's the best. It was the greatest stone block you've ever seen, right? All of that. I started a new Minecraft instance with our Easy Tech Pack, which is our Misdirected Mark pack, and I'm just having fun with it, like just casually playing it, having a good time. I'm gonna play it for a little while we start to have a discussion. I think about a new mod pack. I kind of want to have a broader discussion about the mod pack because I want to talk more about like what's our goal here. Like, do we want old familiar mods? Do we want to try, do we want a mix of some mods we haven't tried before? Like right now that mod pack's got a core in it that's so solid that it's not very different every time I play. It's just like playing a different geographical place and I just do the same things.
Yeah.
But there's like some challenges. Like what if we played without tinkers? So right, I don't know if that'll be fun or not for people, right? And tinkers might be a bad example, but like everybody, like I have a couple mod packs I lean on constantly, and so anyway, so we have to have that discussion. This was the week that I made my my monthly pandemic scallion pancakes and pot stickers. I am definitely getting better at cooking pot stickers. In the beginning, I did an okay job. Like this set of pot stickers I made were like really good. Like crispy on the bottom, chewy on the top, kind of like I really got down the texture difference on them. And the scallion pancakes are just a lock. I'm just gonna say I'm pretty good at making scallion pancakes. And I've found the secret to my dipping sauce. So I buy the store brand pot sticker sauce, but that's always too bland for me. It took me a little while to find the thing I needed, which was chili flake.
There you go.
And a couple, 2 teaspoons of chili flake in there. And chili flake is like chili oil with ground up dried chilies, like Asian chilies. It's delicious. It adds the correct amount of heat.
Yeah.
But yeah, just a couple teaspoons of chili flake into my pot sticker sauce makes it delicious. Anyway, I did all that. And then really the rest of the week was like a whole shit ton of TikTok. I really needed TikTok escapes and things like that. Yeah. So that's basically me. Jer?
For me, ditto for writing. It's been too dark or too clammy lately. Last week we had some warm weather, but it was damp and breezy, and that just made it chilly outside. As I said before, I've been researching some new game hooks. I've been looking at a couple different things I want to do. Also just kind of scrambling over how I'm going to change the campaign I'm running a little bit. I watched the New Mutants. Somebody sent me a stream. It was okay. I'd give it a 6 out of 10. It was, I think they missed a lot in it. It was better than Apocalypse or Dark Phoenix.
Yeah, not a high bar, but
yeah, they missed some of the characters. They miscast some of the characters, and I think it's also just the fact that they picked just a crappy plot. They picked a crappy plot.
Every time you say that, I laugh because the Demon Bear is theoretically, according to a larger sample size, is a very compelling storyline that lots of people are fond of. And yet Jerry's like, fuck the demon bear.
Yeah, I will say that I thought it was not only that, but it was a weak point to start. Like if that's your storyline for the first one, it's also they telegraph way too much, so that the big secret is no big secret kind of thing. But they set up some world building that they're never going to use, and they missed the they just missed the
yeah.
If you're going to have a superhero movie, have a supervillain for Christ's sake. God damn it. Just do it. Bite the bullet and give us a supervillain, or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. If you're going to have a team of heroes, have them fight a team of villains. Don't have them, I'm not going to ruin it for you. Don't have them fight the fucking demon bear. But it was okay. It wasn't horrible. It wasn't, Batman versus Superman levels of horrible. It just wasn't good.
You wait till that Snyder cut comes out. It'll all be fixed.
And I think that it also suffered from just getting pushed off too far as it went. I think that some of the casting was really good, and I think the casting in all but one case was really good. Some of the characters weren't. They messed up some characters. They made Ileana, instead of being mature and a little worldly, they made her into bitchy mean girl who's making fun of everybody else. They made Roberto into a coward. And
wow, that's a real.
And they took and Sam is very hesitant about everything and has no leadership skills whatsoever. But there is some LGBTQ content front and center in it, which works really well.
That's cool.
So I was happy with that, and they did a good job with Rain and Danny with their characters. So.
I'll tell you what's fun is the new run in Marvel Unlimited, the current run of New Mutants. Coming off the Hickman line of X-Men stuff, that is what you call it. That's actually been a lot of fun. Ileana's pretty badass, and the rest of the Sunspot's just. I love him. Like he is Sunspot, but he is also Roberto, and Roberto is like a super like he's not. I guess he's a hero. Like he bought AIM. Like he
okay.
Like there's a point where Roberto owns AIM in the comic books, and I think still does. Like he has a ridiculous amount of money. Anyway,
yeah. But I wouldn't say don't watch it. I'm saying I'm for free. It's good. It's a 6.5. If you like superhero movies or you like horror movies, you'll have a good time with it. They got Lockheed down pat. I mean, just seeing Lockheed was worth it.
Nice.
And
wait a second.
The special effects.
Wait a second.
What?
You have Lockheed.
Yes.
Where's Catherine Pride?
You don't need it. It's one of those. Why isn't Falcon a trash talking, woman hating pimp?
No. There's a reason. Fine. There's a reason why Falcon's character was rewritten in the MCU, and that is good. Yes. But no Kitty. No Lockheed.
You don't. I don't think you need Kitty to have Lockheed work well. Lockheed works well on this, and the way they bring Lockheed in makes sense. It's not just Lockheed's there. Okay. Lockheed has a very particular reason. Like I said, they got some stuff right. It's not horrible. It just and I went into it knowing they're doing the Demon Bear storyline. There's going to be stuff in this I don't like because they're doing the Demon Bear storyline. Unless they do something actually interesting, we're going to be suffering through that plot line. If I skip that. It's still fun. You'll enjoy it. Just don't expect a lot. It's all
right. We should wrap that up and
and that's it. That's all I'll say. It was fun, but it wasn't great. So, all right.
That brings us to the end. Patreon shout outs, kids. Mm-hmm. Prep yourself, Phil. All right. Thank you to Andrew Demps, Brantley Harris,
Chris Steele,
yes, Chromatic Chameleon, Cubano, Curtis Y. Takahashi, Derek Broughton, JT Evans, Jared Rasher, who was in the chat room with us tonight, and Jen Pixelscapes Gagney.
Hey, Jen.
Thank you to all of you for being patrons, and thanks to everyone for listening tonight.
If you are free on Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. the Queen's time, you're welcome. Come join us live on Twitch, where you can join other listeners in the awesome Chat Room for Life, a very chatty Chat Room for Life tonight, and ask us the occasional question.
If you cannot make the live show, check out our podcast each week, wherever you get your podcasts, and take a listen to some of the other shows in the Misdirected Mark Network, such as Down with D&D, Bone Stone Obsidian, the FM Gamers, Panda's Talking Games, The Gnome Cast, Zhang Hu Hustle, She's a Super Geek, and Bonus Experience. You can and should also check out our sibling podcast, Tabletop Bellhop, The Knights of the Night, and the always amazing Gaming and BS.
After you have reflected upon your own game and before you come up with your own astute observations that you want to share, leave us some feedback. You can reach us directly via email, mmp@misdirectedmark.com. Hit us up on Twitter. The show and the network is at misdirectedmark. He is Robert M. Everson. He is GM Gerrymander, and I am DNA Phil.
If you like what we do here and on the other shows in the Misdirected Mark Network, you can support our Patreon campaigns. MMP, Down with D&D, and Panda's Talking Games are at patreon.com/MMP. She's a Super Geek is still currently at patreon.com/SassGeek. Zhang Hu Hustle is at patreon.com/Zhang Hu Hustle. And Bonus Experience is at patreon.com/Bonus Experience. Patrons of MMP, Down with D&D, and Panda's Talking Games get access to the after show, pre-production show notes, musical parodies, the Panda's Talking Games bonus outtakes, which are fun, and other special releases.
This has been a Misdirected Mark production, the media arm of Encoded Designs. Mic drop.
We out.